Chapter 56. Glassed Purge 5. Please. Aila needs to be saved. Help me out just this once. Tylee bowed his head, fresh wounds already marking his skin. Wounds from the first phase of the final battle of Act 2, the chase to catch up to Professor Glast. Zix Effelstein, who had been training on the outskirts of the faculty district, was bewildered by the sight of the injured Tylee. Taylee's sudden plea for help seemed completely out of the blue, given Zix's lack of context. What's going on, Tylee? The Soul Library consisted of a vast hall filled with bookshelves. The outermost bookshelves that lined the walls contained many valuables. Of course, truly valuable rare magical engineering items and legendary magical engineering formulae are situated around the table of Librarian Reina, at the center of the Soul Library. It's nearly impossible to approach there undetected by Reina's sensing magic and, therefore, searching that area would best be left until after this purge is over. Librarian Reina's humming echoed through the grand library hall, her chilling bass voice sending shivers down the spine. For now, let's start by gathering some small magic tome replicas from the outer shelves and searching for magical engineering items that could be dismantled and reassembled. Especially the lightning shout generator from Shelf C could be useful for creating traps with alarms, and the unidirectional light diffusion device could make windows that let light pass only one way. Rather than getting greedy, let's prioritize gathering just that much, and wrap up by collecting books useful for study. The truly valuable magical engineering items can be gathered at leisure when Reina is not watching. Peeking out from between the bookshelves, I spotted Reina, floating in midair. Reina isn't human but a monster from the Banshee clan, chained in spirit to this library, able to sense intruders within a 20-meter radius with her unique detection magic. Reina's skirt floated around her as if she were buoyant underwater. Thus, she periodically patrolled through the sea of books in the library. I was fairly familiar with Reina's patrol patterns. Even if combat were initiated, I knew the tactics well enough to deal with her. Yet, that Reina was precious experience points for Tylee. Without sufficient mastery of Taylee's sword saint techniques or other swordsmanship skills, we'd face difficulties against Professor Glast's celestial magic. And if we can't exert full power against the disaster-level bosses we'll encounter later, especially if the sword saint technique doesn't reach a certain level, I might have to take responsibility for facing those foes. It's an arduous task, and frankly, neither the will nor the capability to take responsibility is there. So we've decided to steer clear of the boss monsters in Professor Glast's secret lab for now. Well, in truth, skipping Reina wouldn't noticeably break the momentum of Taylee's already burgeoning power. And it's not just Reina. Even skipping most of the bosses wouldn't slow our growth rate immediately. Just target the resurrected demon of the underground waterway for the most beneficial growth points, and we should be fine. Still, just to be safe, caution wouldn't hurt. I snuck between the bookshelves, stashing various parchments and formulae into my pockets. Sigh. While avoiding Reina's gaze, which regularly swept betwixt the shelves, I grabbed whatever I could reach. Without reading each formula, it's hard to determine its purpose, so focusing on quantity rather than quality seemed the best strategy to hoard as much as possible. Feeling the weight in my pockets grow heavier brought a sense of satisfaction. It seems the guard's gaze shouldn't reach the exit now, Master. Ed. Closing square bracket. Muck whispered a warning to me. It's not time yet. Can't let down my guard. Reina's detection magic isn't limited by sight. Banshee Reina doesn't rely merely on sight to detect enemies, but senses the magical energy within a certain distance. If I take action before digging deeper, I'm more likely to be detected. I waited with persistence amidst the bookshelves for Reina to show an opening. Coom, hum. I suddenly noticed a slight tremor in the ground. A low humming noise was approaching from afar. Initially, I thought it was a delusion and ignored it, but as bookshelves began to quiver, a sense of urgency crept upon me. Could it be an earthquake? As far as I knew, there was no such event scheduled. Though at first treated as a minor disturbance, the shaking soon reached an undeniable intensity. Master Ed. Closing square bracket. What now? Muck called out to me, sounding desperate. Already balance was impossible without clinging to a bookshelf. The vibration wouldn't mean much to the floating Reina, but it was different for other bookshelves. Eventually, the bookshelves that had been shielding me could no longer withstand the tumult and began to topple one by one, failing in their dutiful roles of providing cover. With the falling bookshelves, my hiding place was compromised. And then, I was completely exposed to Reina's field of view. Banshee Reina's humming abruptly stopped. Upon spotting me, she unleashed a shrill scream. Keek! And began emitting magic power. Suddenly, the surroundings warped as if alive, and the bookshelves and tomes in the library began to levitate. Animated by Reina's soul magic, the once inanimate objects began to move and thrash about as if stricken by poltergeist phenomena. Master Ed, what do we do? This is. Closing square bracket. Don't worry, escaping is the easy part. Reina's soul is bound to this library. All I needed to do was conquer the space with fire magic and retreat towards the exit, beyond her range. It's not a difficult challenge. I took a deep breath and rolled up my sleeves. Subduing Reina wasn't the goal, just an escape. It was as easy as pie. I began to gather magical energy within my body. The attire was not suitable for combat, but there was no time to change. Lortel's gaze hardened as the embellished hem of his ornate semi-robe fluttered. Stepping down from the carriage, Lortel brushed aside the employees urging him to return to the conference room with one arm and looked towards the entrance of the underground waterway, his mouth agape. Sturdy stone pillars stood firmly on either side of the entrance. Approaching the downward slope leading underground, the distinctive dampness clung to the throat as if it were mucus. Further down, a meticulously arranged waterway stretched into the depths. The space was spacious with tall ceilings and broad width, and with clean stone supports and walls, there wasn't excessive dust flying about. But no matter how skillfully the underground waterway was constructed with first-rate magic technology, it couldn't entirely withstand the tests of time. Marks of mold and splintered or broken parts were evident. Clearly, there's no escaping the evidence of age. It wasn't the sort of place someone like Lortel, adorned with jewelry and clothes worth dozens of gold coins, would usually set foot in. Even a single speck of dust could change the figures in the account books. Yet without hesitation, Lortel stepped into the waterway. He had instructed the non-combatant staff to wait outside and come in to report if the situation changed. This waterway seems unnecessarily large for a facility like this. Lortel, who had ventured into construction and generously sponsored various buildings, had a keen investment sense for infrastructures. Given the size of the Sylvania Academy, occupying half of Akan Island's southern region, there wasn't a need for such an extensive underground waterway. The high ceilings and broad width were excessive. The water flowing through the waterway wasn't substantial. At best, it would barely soak Lortel's slim ankles. It seems like it was built with another purpose in mind. Lortel quickly discerned that there was something off about the waterway's construction. The specific purpose remained unclear. As the downward slope ended, and the true entrance to the waterway was revealed, Lortel swallowed hard. Chrrrrrr. Coom, coom. The sound of ripples in the central water channel. Mystical golem fragments, inscribed with magic, littered the waterway here and there. Clear signs of battle were present. No, it was more akin to a one-sided expulsion. Venturing further toward the central section, golem cores the size of a carriage were rolling along the bottom of the water channel. With residual magic causing them to quiver intermittently, they were no longer a meaningful threat. The fragments as large as Lortel's upper body must be remnants of medium-class magic golems, while the ones comparable to carriages were of high-class golems. Dealing with about 10 medium-class golems would require a group of high-ranking senior students. To tackle a high-class golem, one would need personnel on par with the faculty staff. Few could single-handedly and simultaneously break through them. Even Lortel, confident in his magical prowess, couldn't take them all at once. Lortel continued through the golem fragments deeper into the waterway. A girl lay unconscious at the end of the corridor. Lortel knew the top students of each grade by heart. Recognizing her was not difficult. The lofty height for a female, hair casually tied for ease of movement, and freckles dotting her cheeks like dimples. It was Dorothy, the top alchemy student from the third year. But she was entirely out cold. Her damp clothes suggested someone had subdued her and pulled her out of the water. Then, a shawl had been considerately draped over her as a blanket to ward off the cold. Upon seeing it, Lortel's expression twisted with displeasure. I was somewhat relieved by the situation flowing relatively smoothly so far. However, inevitably, new complications arise. Minor variables can be managed somehow. My abilities have improved significantly, and with my knowledge of the future, most issues can be resolved one way or another. Convincing Yenica or Lortel to join. I could meet and talk with them to solve the issue. However, there are variables that are absolutely beyond my control. I took a deep breath. Sylvania's failure swordsman, Act 2's final battle, the glassed subjugation. Within that scenario flow, once you enter, there's a bad ending route from which escape is impossible, no matter what. And the fact that the little witch in a hat, who frequents the camp, intends to join. Lucy Mayrill, the top student of the first year and the final boss of Act 3, a prodigious genius. Her joining is not good news. It's not the bosses that could easily be swept away by her immense power that are the problem. Variables not in the main scenario that suddenly twist the plot can be patched up by me running around doing damage control. Even existing, bad ending, scenarios, for the most part, can be resolved by me somehow. But, there are indeed a few bad ending routes that are difficult to solve from my end. Bad ending 27, the indolent Lucy. The condition for this route is any interaction between Professor Glast and Lucy Mayrill after the incident. Lucy, persuaded by a desperate Glast to turn against her allies, leads to this route. Once entered, a bad ending follows after the event battle with Lucy. Lucy, completely swayed by Glast's heartfelt plea to become an enemy, is not meant to be defeated in Act 2. There was no known solution for defeating her at this point in the story, even after hundreds of hours of speculation by hardcore gamers and dedicated fans. Preventing any encounter between Professor Glast and Lucy Mayrill was crucial by any means. Merg senses it, near the underground waterway. The academic staff's reaction is lukewarm and unsatisfactory. I'll have to go myself. Will you help me, Lucy? I feel really safe with you around. One might wonder if help is truly needed. Yenica Faylover is strong enough, and Lucy is infinitely lazy. Yet, Yenica Faylover's words carry a peculiar force. Her lively and vibrant tone also holds a strange seriousness, enough to sway even Lucy, who previously had no interest in worldly affairs. Lately, she had been feeling rather empty. Yawn. Lying on the makeshift rooftop of her hut, stretching like a chirping chick, Lucy hugs her witch hat and shakes her head to clear her sleepiness, then lazily watches the campfire. For days, the fire hasn't been lit at the campfire site. Although it seems trivial, Lucy had enjoyed the crackling sounds while napping. She liked the bitter taste of the jerky that wafted through the air, and although it was bothersome, she found comfort in being picked up from the ground while deeply sighing and thrown onto a fur bed. Rolling her petite frame, Lucy gazes at the starry sky for a moment, reminiscing about an old man with wrinkled fingers she once knew. The sky is vast, and the full moon is clear. The girl gazing up at the moon, kicking her feet, becomes a part of the landscape. Then, a dreamy voice blends into the night air like paint. I miss you. What's lost is lost. Despite knowing this, the loneliness that occasionally wells up is something not even the strongest can completely shake off. The person is already gone. The time to be heartbroken about this acknowledged fact has passed. Yet, the loneliness left by the departed leaves marks on that tiny heart. Even knowing they can no longer be seen, that is a completely separate issue. The design of the shawl embroidered with cute cosmos flowers along its edges was quite charming. Although it was of far less value compared to the clothes Lortel wore, that shawl held its own significance. Just as important as the clothes is the hanger. The girl who always wore this shawl, a spirit mage known to everyone in Sylvania. Back at the entrance again. Ah! Without anyone around to hear, a girl emerged from within, crying out. Well, there must have been someone listening, just not visible to Lortel's eyes. I told you. It was Tarkon's words that were right. Or, was it not? Whose advice did I follow this time? So, right at the second fork, then left, right left, or was it? Left right left. My head hurts. And she continued to mutter complaints to the air, fiddling with her fingers. Sorry, I'm terrible with directions. It took me days just to memorize the way to the northern forest. Asking me to grasp such a maze in one go is too much, and Melise, you couldn't remember the way either. Don't be so mad. It's frustrating for me too. To end up back here again, how am I supposed to find Ed at this rate? Her speech was cut short when her eyes met Lortel's. Quote ellipsis quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Only the sound of flowing water echoed through the dark underground waterway. Her intricately braided pink hair was full of dirt, a stark contrast to her usual appearance without the shawl. Her neatly worn uniform was spotted with damp and dusty marks, indicating she had been in a fight not long ago. The size and shape of these marks suggested that there had been additional battles inside the waterway. Oh my, oh my. Senior Yenica. Rivalry hardly encompasses the entirety of their relationship, it's something more entangled and sordid. Regardless of whether it's Yenica or Lortel, the mutual disdain is clear. Lortel had distinctly seen Tarkan's figure near the entrance of the underground waterway minutes ago. It was easy to infer that Yenica had rushed here upon hearing of Ed's abduction. However, Lortel's appearance was completely unexpected to Yenica. This fact was crucial. It indicated that Lortel's judgment was a step ahead. Speaking of Yenica Faylover, she is Sylvania's ace, boasting the most splendid martial prowess among students of each grade. If we were to rank purely in terms of power, excluding the overwhelmingly dominant Lucy, Yenica would be near the top among the rest. At this point, there's no need for Professor Glast's research team or anyone else. She could single-handedly wreck the waterway, creating chaos to secure Ed's safety. Then, despite Lortel's typically rational character, allowing for self-objectification, there's one aspect she overlooks. Her thought process regresses when it comes to matters of the heart. When Lortel will come to realize and acknowledge this embarrassment is a tale for another day. For now, the images floating in Lortel's head are overly simplistic. Yenica wielding various spirits to rescue the captured Ed. I came to save you, Ed. Are you hurt? It must have been tough. I was so worried. Are you okay? Let's go back together. I've prepared a meal at the camp. Let's warm up with some hot soup. Can't muster any strength, huh? It's okay, I'll carry you. Thanks, Yenica, you're the best. It was terrifying being kidnapped out of the blue. There were many scary moments, and I needed help. It's always you, Yenica. You're the one meant to be my life partner. Let's get married, Yenica. No, Ed, marriage, what are you talking about? I'm so happy. Where shall we hold the ceremony? How many children shall we have? Do you prefer a daughter or a son? Where shall we set up our honeymoon home? Can we make it through? Don't worry, Yenica, I'll make sure you won't have to lift a finger. Let's go, the morning sun is rising, just like our future, bright and shining. Ha 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 ha, no way. Despite dabbling in nearly every venture, Lortel's naivety in matters of love is astonishing. It's high time for some self-awareness, but Lortel found herself trembling with dilated pupils once again. Senior Yenica. Senior Ed has been rescued, you say. It's truly infuriating, but it seems he was quite hurt in the process. Lying in bed, calling out only for you, Senior Yenica. In a coma, asking when you'll come, searching only for you at the camp. Indeed, Lortel was quick-witted. Given the abundance of evidence that Ed was abducted to this underground waterway, it was necessary to drive Yenica out of here. What did you say? Startled, Yenica gasped and then dashed off like a bullet, gripping her staff tightly to her chest. Chapter 57. Glast Taming Battle 6. There are a lot of buildings. Such thoughts naturally arose when looking down at the view of the faculty buildings from the rooftop of Triss Hall. Obel Porcius often hears people say he's young. However, this is relative to the position he holds, not his absolute age. Obel hasn't even reached his 60s yet. Among the many who have held the position of headmaster of the Sylvania Academy, he is particularly young. Since his days as a newly appointed professor, he settled firmly into his academic role, and before he knew it, it had been 28 years. Now, there are hardly any higher positions left in the academic field. The world has changed a lot too. The faculty district, which used to consist of just 6 or so buildings, is now bigger than a modest village. One has to stand on a hillock to take in the whole view. Considering that the dormitory complex has also almost doubled in size, the Sylvania Academy has grown significantly during his tenure. Before realizing it, Obel had become the person who had spent the longest time at Sylvania. Of course, this includes the students who must eventually graduate, as well as the accomplished professors whose careers don't even come close to half of Obel's tenure. I have no doubt that this is the golden era of Sylvania Academy. Obel said this while standing with his hands clasped behind his back on the rooftop, and behind him, Headmaster McDowell, who was assisting him, nodded. If Headmaster Obel says so, it must be true. Obel's experience and power were respected by everyone at Sylvania. Obel Porcius quietly looked out over the outskirts of the faculty district, where smoke was rising. As with places where underground waterways were located, the area was nearly deserted, and despite its size, calling it a vital infrastructure was a bit of a stretch. Golden Era. This year's freshman class is the Golden Generation, a rarity throughout the history of Sylvania. Lucy, Zix, Lortel, Elvira, Clevius, Adele, Eldon. Just listing them in order of their grades shows the potential of each student, one that could aim to be the top of other grades. It's not just about academics. Aila, who can absorb a vast amount of magical knowledge in an instant, shows the talent of a true scholar with her interesting insights. Among the 3 imperial princesses of the Clarel Empire, Princess Phenia, despite her reluctance, is overwhelmingly supported and is destined to walk the path of a ruler. And Tylee McClure, who practices the Sword Saint's technique and is growing insanely strong at an unbelievable rate, is already a legend among the students. What about next year? There are already several notable freshmen who have declared their intention to enroll. Wade, the only son of Magnus, the commander of the Ironblood Legion that guards the northern borderlands. Tanya, the second daughter of the most powerful Rothtailor family on the continent. Clarice, the saint of the Telos Church with the largest following in the Empire, and Claude, the descendant of the alchemist Cal, who is said to have personally created half the world's toxins. It seems ominous to have so many potential stars in one grade that you'd expect an overwhelming disaster just to give them a challenge. An unnecessary thought, but it's the kind of crisis one might actually need to grapple with given this amount of talent. Yet, no matter how many brilliant freshmen there are, ultimately, there will only be one shining at the very top. A capricious mage who scatters her blessed mana, acting on her whims. During his 28 years of service, Obel never once thought he would be outmatched by a student. He is regarded as the closest in power to the great Archmage Glucked, among those who currently exist. Is it really okay to stand back and do nothing? Headmaster McDowell asked in a concerned tone. Obel, who had been quietly staring down towards the underground waterway, shook his head. Within McDowell's words, concern was hidden. A senior professor had triggered chaos. In doing so, a precious treasure of the academy was stolen. What's worse is the existence of kidnapped students. If there were casualties, Obel's responsibility would increase exponentially. It would be acceptable to issue a statement of apology and swallow one's pride if it ended as a minor accident. However, there is no guarantee of what would happen if a student were to lose their life. Yet, Obel did not move. Tilting his gaze slightly downward toward the railing, one could see a mark where someone seemed to have sat and napped. Traces of jerked meat crumbs were scattered around the perimeter. That trace of magic bore the star's blessing, a power only the great archmages could wield. Following the direction in which the magic disappeared led to the underground waterway. Within Sylvania Academy, a genius with extraordinary, exceptional power is the only one who could possibly rival Headmaster Obel. Professor Glast rated her as a talent with the qualities of a great archmage that would go down in history. Even if one was a seasoned scholar adept at high-level magic, one wouldn't stand a chance against that girl who monopolizes divine love and wields almost cheating power. Professor Glast, huh? Obel slowly closed his eyes. The passing of time seemed immaterial. There was a time when Obel himself was a new professor. Professor Glast was the same. Time and years wear people down and refine them. Bit by bit, it shaves away the hot-blooded appearance of a fresh professor and rebirths one into a seasoned educator. Headmaster Obel, how can this be? Please, say something. When Professor Glast had just been appointed as a new professor, Obel had already been the dean of the magic department. Glast, with his gaunt and pallid appearance, had been a talkative fellow from those early professor days. Now, that is a thing of the past. Is it not unfair to uniformly fail students from Dex Hall as poor performers? Are students with no talent not still students? The purpose of grading differences among students is to achieve higher academic success, not to divide the students' very rank. It's only natural that the heights one can reach depend on the talent they possess. However, it's unacceptable for an educator to treat the untalented ones as if they are naturally disqualified. The youthful Professor Glast, pounding on the table as he raised his voice, is now nothing but a distant memory. Days when he'd push research in divine magic studies aside, spending sleepless nights in the corner of the research room trying to plan an educational curriculum for the week that was even slightly more efficient. Now, that's also part of a distant past. Years and decades taught him much, changing many of his values. And at the end of those years, whatever conclusion he draws, whatever proof he displays as he concludes his scholarly life. Growing old together isn't always a good thing. Obel gazed at the expansive scenery before him, uttering a deep sigh that no one noticed. The autumnal scene of a fading academy falls under the sunset. At some point, the change of seasons doesn't seem to hold much meaning. It's aging. Hey, I was sitting by a collapsed bookcase, head in hands. Hey, 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 hey. Maybe thinking I couldn't hear and hence wasn't responding, they kept calling me incessantly, which was somewhat annoying. Lucy always calls me, hey, in the exact same way. It's predictably obvious what will follow. Do you have any more jerked meat? Do I look like I would? Lucy blatantly showed her disappointment, lackadaisically swinging her feet in the air as if she couldn't care less. From the top of the opposite bookshelf, Lucy, fidgeting with her witch's hat, looks just the same as always. Having busted through the surface alone and reached this deep secret research room, one would think she'd be proud. Despite being capable of such a feat, Lucy just considered it akin to fetching a glass of water. Of course, it's not a situation in which I can simply express my gratitude for being saved. Anyway, thank you, Lucy. Since she came all the way down here to rescue me from this deep secret research room, I had to say thanks. But, how did you end up rescuing me? Being questioned about why she rescued after the fact wasn't exactly pleasant. But of course, it's not as if Lucy cares about such formalities. The spirit mage asked me for help. At first, I thought of just leaving you because it was bothersome, but then it occurred to me that maybe I should. Plus, I was bored. Lucy flung her petite frame down from the bookshelf and lightly landed on the marble floor below. The effortless grace with which she landed, sleeves flaring, didn't seem remotely human. In fact, a thoroughbred cat's weight multiplied by a few times would be about the same as Lucy's weight, so it's only natural her movements appear non-human. As light as a feather, indeed. That light-hearted agility is aided by various weight reduction and gravity manipulation spells she's cloaked in. You felt you should rescue me. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but lying there alone at camp, I felt bored and like I should rescue you. Quote. I stared at Lucy silently, who responded by yawning ostentatiously, as if unbothered. Hey, what now? Do you really have no jerked meat left? Like, at all? Yeah. Lucy didn't voice her dissatisfaction, but her disgruntled mumbling made it clear she was indeed disappointed. Anyway, I've rescued you, so I should go. I need to look out for a nice place to nap around here. You can't. Quote. At first glance, things don't seem to be working out properly. It's beyond the point of just sighing about it. There's obviously no rule that everything in the world must go as planned. The situation seems worse than expected, but surely Taylor's specs should have grown sufficiently by now. Like most games, Taylor's spec growth scales exponentially towards the later stages. If early and very late game growth efficiencies were similar, that would be more surprising. If Tiley maintained the growth rate up till now, skipping a few bosses shouldn't pose a huge issue. As witnessed in the final act of the first scene, the key is to avoid situations where story progression is hindered by not mastering essential skills. The bosses that offer training points for the Sword Saint technique are set, Glassed in the final act, the demon in the underground waterway, the researcher come, and the Cyclops. Training point efficiency is high because they naturally appear towards the end of the scenario. So far, so good, still. Just stay attached to me and go wherever I go. Quote. I laid my hands on Lucis' shoulders and made it clear. If the spec growth itself is still rectifiable, the priority should be to eliminate routes that could lead to a bad ending. Lucis' variable in the final scene of Act 2 has driven many players to a bad ending. We must avoid the specific situation where she is persuaded by Professor Glass to become antagonistic towards Tylee. Compared to the risks involved, preventing it is simple. Just keep Lucy from meeting Glass. Keeping strict surveillance on Lucy to prevent any mischief should suffice. It's as if I'm her caretaker, but given the circumstances, it makes sense. Why? With a lackluster and dazed look, Lucy inquired why all this fuss. Why, indeed. Providing an explanation becomes a tricky challenge. Looking into those dazed eyes, a past memory flickers through my mind. What does the character Lucy Mayriel mean to someone who has played Sylvania's failed swordsman countless times? She represents the first obstacle, an insurmountable hurdle for any player. The final act of Act 3, the Lucy suppressing battle. At the peak of Orin Mountain, she summons all 4 top-tier spirits and flings high-level magic of all tiers as easily as if they were basic spells. She's a living natural disaster that even the amassed efforts of all faculty, the royal family, the merchant guild, and internal academic factions couldn't suppress. I remember the first attempt, where having access to just one spell of her caliber was considered endgame, leaving the player only able to withstand her attacks, consuming all consumable items in the process. Ultimately, players alone can't win, only by gathering NPCs with endgame specs can victory be grasped. Until reaching Sylvania's failed swordsman's final ending, there's no way to develop the specs needed to defeat Lucy. From understanding elemental weaknesses to consuming items, strategy implementation, there is no methodology that can truly conquer her abilities. The only way to get past her relentless onslaught is through the combined powers within the game world. She's designed to be beaten only by uniting the strongest NPCs. Tylee might temporarily overpower Lucy or even outmaneuver her using a multitude of tricks, but that's only when he resorts to doubling or tripling his cunningness. Fundamentally, no one can match Lucy's strength, at least not in this era of our tale. She's the girl who has monopolized the love of the gods and has been endowed with a power and mana sensitivity that verges on cowardice. Even in her current state, she exhibits a ridiculous amount of power, yet this is only half of what her talent can truly awaken. If we were to represent each character's power with a bar graph, Lucis would burst through the chart, making everyone else appear ordinary. Even in the setting documents, Lucis' graph is separated because she is a being that cannot be standardized. Therefore, Lucy is an uncontrollable variable. She roams the city freely, like a stray cat, untouchable by anyone. She goes wherever she pleases, eats whatever she desires, and sleeps whenever she feels like it. No one can discern her thoughts, and her actions are unpredictable. Sniff, sniff. And here she is, rubbing her nose on the back of my hand without a word, sniffing as if searching for the scent of jerky. This behavior is so emblematic of who she is that I'm at a loss for words. I don't need to stick by your side, you know. You're safe now. Though absent-minded, her voice has a certain purity to it, speaking the apparent truth. It would be futile to try explaining anything in detail to this girl, who naturally struggles with conversation. Lucy, you're strong. That's why I feel safe around you. Quote. There are times, even without doing anything or saying much, just having you by my side makes me feel secure. Don't you get what that's like? Quote. Lucy, with her vacant eyes, slowly responds. I know. Yes, exactly. While whining, Lucy's loose sleeve flails about. But that's entirely your problem. Right. That's why I'm asking you. Just stick with me until I can get out of this subterranean waterway, please. If you want to get out of this underwater passage, I can let you out. There are things I must attend to before I leave. Annoyance spreads across her face. Fine. But I have a favor to ask as well. Quote ellipsis quote. With dull eyes, she stretches out her arms wide into the air, indicating she's looking for a place to nap. It's not much trouble to carry this tiny girl. When I lift her, she's surprisingly light, almost questioning if this is the weight of a real person. As I hoist Lucy onto my back, she naturally wraps her arms around my neck, adjusts her position with a few kicks, and prepares for a deep sleep. Resting her chin on my shoulder, she hums contentedly, as if she's found the most comfortable spot in the world. It doesn't take long for a deep snoring sound to follow. That's right, as long as Lucy is here, tightly in my grasp, she's not going anywhere. Let's quickly finish up the task at hand. Despite the library being half destroyed, there is still much to retrieve. Now that Reina has been subdued, we can take as much as we want without scrutiny and head towards the underground channel. If we encounter Yenica and others who came to rescue me along the way, we'll quickly assure them everything is okay and let them out after showing myself unharmed. If we happen to meet Tylee, we should update him on Isla's condition. Then, he'll likely join the chase after Glast more vigorously. The group aiming to pursue Glast must be breaking through the lower channels by now. Just me, running counter to the course, enacting a solo escape act, the irony isn't lost on me. Taylee's group progresses deeper into the underpass. Tension envelops them all. They felt unease the moment they reached the entrance, encountering a passed-out Dorothy amongst the debris of numerous golems. Inside these subterranean channels, something is rampaging, indiscriminately demolishing everything in sight. Do not let your guard down. Tylee McClure, although not yet a sword saint, has grown enough that his peers cannot approach him carelessly. Even if not quite up to the standard of the first-year aces, he has acquired a robust set of combat skills. During midterm exams, even Zix had no choice but to applaud Taylee's progress. Tylee had faced numerous trials, overcoming them through sheer willpower and diligence, painting a picture of his life. Zix always respected Tylee, recognizing the distinctive venom that flows through those who have spilled blood and shaved bone in their struggle to survive. Do we really need to go deeper? At a glance, it seems like there's someone else inside this waterway. Didn't you hear that vibrating sound? There was a massive earthquake. Shouldn't we just avoid this danger and get out? As Clevius, trembling with fear, speaks up, Elvira steps hard on his foot. Talking nonsense again, Clevius. Are you not going to save Aila? Well, to start with, all Aila ever did was get mad at me. Why should I want to rescue such a woman? Plus, that, Ed Rothtailor, do we have to save that guy too? Why do we have to go this far? Clevius. A quiet, calm voice cuts through the underpass. It's Tylee. I'm really sorry, but I truly want to save Aila. Please, let me ask this of you. Tylee had already bowed respectfully to Clevius. Clevius, now regretting his words, seems pitiful, yet Tylee bows again. Clevius stammers. Damn, why are you doing this to me? Clevius knows Aila is a good person. It's not just that he disdainfully considers Clevius' constant urge to flee, she tries to admonish him and set him straight. Don't back out now that we've come this far, Clevius. Zix pats Clevius' shoulder a couple of times, then reassesses the members of the expedition. Underachieving Sword Saint Tylee, Spear of Greens Zix, Gloomy Clevius, Meddlesome Elvira, and the romantic Adele. Oh dear. The blonde girl, tuning her mandolin among the group, flashes a charming smile. Her warm features and gentle voice seem to alleviate mental fatigue for those who listen. A couple of daffodils tucked in her ear struggle to display their full color against the paleness of Adele's skin. Cascading blonde hair is punctuated with hairpins modeled after daffodils, cosmos, roses, tulips, and likely around a dozen adorn her hair. The prophetess Adele, or rather, self-proclaimed romantic Adele. I haven't heard much about Aila, but seeing everyone so eager to rescue her, she must be a wonderful person. Yes, Isla's like a life partner to me. Tylee, even so, you need to be firm in your resolve. Prior to being a sorceress, Adele is an astrologer. While not always spot on, her glimpses into the future, informed by the stars, often hit the mark. The enemy we're about to face, I have a feeling it won't be easy. Glast's actions suggest this theft of the sage's seal was meticulously planned. He must have anticipated this chase to some extent. There's a good chance he's prepared traps and other means to shake off any pursuers. The fragments of demon golems at the entrance are likely a sign of this. Even Dorothy, the senior alchemy student, apparently succumbed to whatever lies ahead in this pipeline. If even she couldn't overcome it, they must be vigilant. So, the group continues, focusing intently and moving forward. Boom, boom. Suddenly, a noise comes from around the corner. Ah! A sharp cry of a woman adds to the urgency, and the team looks at each other before rushing forward. Someone is there. As they round the corner, they're confronted by a massive flame spirit. In the broad junction of the waterway, which almost looks like a plaza, several paths converge at this central point. In the middle stand two individuals. Please. I don't know anything. I was just ordered to oversee. That's all. Please. Just once, let me go. Just once. A girl. Her back is turned, her face unseen. But the one enveloped by spirits, screaming in terror, is someone they know all too well. Among the first-year professors, Assistant Professor Claire is a favorite among students for her youthful mindset and approachable manner. Despite her title, she surpasses most students in foundational combat magic, but this time, her opponent was too much for her. The girl leans on her oak butterfly wand, whispering something, no more than 6 letters, in Claire's ear. I don't know. I really don't. It wasn't planned. It was just a whim. Please. Tears stream down before exhaustion overtakes Claire. She collapses to the ground of the waterway. Sitting down, she scrambles backward, reaching the wall. The spirits roar, and Claire ultimately loses consciousness. The girl still has her back turned. But the party already knows who she is. Especially Tylee and Elvira, who have faced this girl as an enemy twice before. The Terror incarnate wielding mighty mid-ranking spirits to protect Ed in the Ophelius building still haunts them. Even with Tarkon's power not fully restored, the thought of defeating her seemed improbable, even at that incomplete stage. Now Tylee and Elvira have improved. The fight might be more manageable. But back then, the girl hadn't used her full strength either. Without Ed to stop her here, it becomes clear, what they glimpsed of her power in Ophelius was just a sample. Learned fear rises in Tylee. He swiftly unsheathes his sword into a defensive stance. Wasn't it left, right, left, right? Did I go too far right? The girl speaks into the darkness before turning around. She senses the presence of Taylee's party. Sneaking a glance from among the spirits, the girl usually seems lively, but no one can open their mouths easily. Oh, hello, kids. Everyone's expressions stiffen, except for Zix, who seems oddly pleased. Considering the shawl found near Dorothy's collapse at the entrance of this underpass, adorned with lovely cosmos embroidery, undoubtedly belongs to this girl. She must be the one who overpowered Dorothy upon entering the underground waterways. Although the details are unclear, after witnessing both the kind Claire's terror and collapse, they can't let their guard down. The group swallows dryly, tightening their postures. Only Zix seems puzzled by their demeanor. Amid the spacious crossroads of the underground channel, stands the intruder, Yenneker Feylover. Far too formidable an opponent for Taylee's party's first confrontation. But there are times when courage alone must drive one forward, regardless of the odds. After all, their desire to save Aila is genuine. Why are they looking at me like that? Did I do something wrong? Perhaps, I was too harsh on Assistant Professor Claire. But she started panicking on her own after just a question. But timid Yenneker couldn't voice her thoughts, scolding the spirits internally instead. Time is of the essence. She worries that without her help, Ed, who has quite a few enemies, could be in trouble. Surely no one but her can save him. She has to worry about doing too many things at once. Busy to death, that's what. Chapter 58. Glassed Subjugation War 7. You have acquired a new magic engineering combination formula. Closing square bracket. Claw hand common. A magical tool capable of instantly pulling objects or enemies at a short distance towards you. Single use. Craigle magic ink common. Special ink needed to inscribe particular magic formulas. Single use. Bright orb common. A magical tool that emits light for a certain duration, serving as illumination. Single use. Onaya's Gastfire, rare. A fire attribute trap installation tool. Cannot be used indoors or in certain terrains. Telos's Frosty Blessing, rare. Temporarily skyrocketing physical defense. Be wary of the side effects leading to an exhausted state. Lightning Struck Millennial Tree Staff, very rare. Amplifies the sensitivity to all attribute spirits. Increases the magical efficiency of spirit-based spells. Glassed Eye, legendary. Temporarily massive increase in proficiency for all sensing abilities. Halves the efficiency of curse-based magic. Prevents use of defensive magic. Immunes to elemental magic. Dulheim's Hourglass, legendary. Rewinds the physical state to several seconds prior and eliminates all damage and injuries. Single use. Magic engineering skills are so difficult to master that even creating a single rare item can boost proficiency sharply. The items of even higher tiers are truly useful tools to the end. Based on the scenario of Sylvania's failed, if you manage to create 2 or 3 legendary grade magic engineering products before clearing, it means you have trained quite diligently. Such is the prestige of legendary grade magic engineering tools. Each component is hard to procure, and the labor involved is immense, so the more experienced individuals do not invest in magic engineering lightly. I suppose I've managed to gather quite a haul. Stuffing scrolls enough to fill my bag and slinging Lucy over my shoulder, I dashed for the exit of the lab. Once you've broken through the soul library, the rest is easy. The creatures guarding the path to the sewer exit are mostly light magical beasts. They're not even worth researching, and after escaping, the researchers wouldn't bother capturing them. After all, my physical strength is well trained, enough to rival that of most men. I sprinted through the ranks of magical beasts with Lucy on my back, blowing away enemies that blocked my path with elemental magic. Boom. Bang. I crossed marble-laden corridors, dashed through countless intersections without hesitation, running towards the exit. Growl. Screech. The vampire bats hanging from the nearly invisible, high ceiling spread their wings and dove down, emitting cries of delight at discovering new prey, attempting to sink their teeth into my skin. Whoosh. Needless to say, they all burned to a crisp. Neither the bizarre-looking test subjects nor the escaped gremlins were any match for me. At the start of the first semester, I might have struggled with basic magic, but now, nearing the end of the second semester, I have trained so rigorously, leading an unbelievably tough routine, that no low-ranking magical beast stands a chance against me. Your proficiency in elemental magic has increased. Closing square bracket. Your proficiency in magic sense has increased. Closing square bracket. Is this the true joy of a sweeping hunt? The unique experience point bombs of magical beasts poured down on me. Sorry Tylee, I'll just take a little. I managed to reach nearly the exit without disturbing the magical beasts as much as possible. As I was sprinting with all my might, a huge iron door came into sight. It looks imposing from the inside but would appear merely as a stone wall from the outside, hidden as it is by camouflage magic. Opening this door leads to the sewers. Of course, it cannot be opened just like that. One must use the decryption magic shared amongst those who know of this lab's existence. If unable to decrypt, one must break it down completely. Tylee would have been able to slice through the door entirely using the Sword Saint technique, but I lack such a skill. Originally, my plan was to hide nearby and slip out through the open exit when Tylee arrived. However, it seems there might not be time for that now. Still, I possess the master key. I pinched and pulled on Lucy's cheek, who was softly breathing behind me. Her cheek stretched out like mochi as Lucy woke up from her slumber. Preparing for battle, the immense flow of mana spreads through the sewer passages. Lortel Cahelm can sense that something has happened on the side of Yenica. Perhaps he met a magical golem wandering the sewers, but a low-tier magical golem would not be capable of summoning such powerful mana. Lortel himself has encountered a few magical golems while strolling through the sewers, though they're troublesome since direct magic doesn't work on them. They're not mightily strong opponents. It's easy to defeat them by breaking the inner walls with magic and applying external physical force. Lortel Cahelm once faced Yenica at her full power during a combined combat exercise. Even if senior students were to attack her, it is almost impossible for anyone, other than the faculty, to overpower Yenica when she is at her full strength. Especially if it's first-year students, it's not even worth discussing. However, it appears that time is dragging on. Although it's unclear what's happening, if issues have arisen in the search for Ed, it presents an opportunity for Lortel. Indeed, Lortel has found a clue within the sewer that leads to a secret research lab. Somewhere nearby, there is a magic that's been concealed. Lortel is particularly sensitive to magic sensing, so much so that even Professor Glast acknowledged her and placed her in Class A. She never misses even the slightest mana reaction within a few meters radius. Yenika, who is specialized in spirit magic, might be a bit numb to these sensations. It seems there might be an entrance leading to an even more secretly hidden facility nearby. If that's not the case, then this structure, which always leads back to the same place, makes no sense. Without proper navigation, you would endlessly circle around. This structure would not function properly as a sewer. Though called a sewer, it's merely mimicking one while also serving another purpose. It's not the time to be naively daydreaming. Suddenly, Lortel looked down at his reflection in the water. His hair, neatly combed to shine at its best. The calm auburn color enhanced the beauty of his fair skin. Blue rose-shaped hairpins added for style and the gold-trimmed semi-robe made him look like a girl dressed up for a date. Words are easy for a girl caught in romance, but now that he's here in this place, it feels childish. Lortel sighed deeply, removed his hairpin, and let his hair down. He took a string out of his uniform pocket and tied it to one side as usual. He put on the robe hat he hadn't been using, in case his hair got messy, and stuffed his expensive accessories into his pockets. Now somewhat plain, but back to his usual dignified appearance, Lortel nodded his head and flexed his arms. No matter how much you want to look good, it's a clear crisis. You can't weigh the life of your beloved in the balance just because you don't want to lose out to a competitor. He has lived all his life weighing all values on a scale, but there must be something that should absolutely never be weighed. What it is will be the measure of that person's value, he believes with no doubt. Thinking this far, Lortel started to worry genuinely about Ed. Ed Rothtailor feels like a mysterious person who would somehow resolve any crisis. The solid and trustworthy image of Ed has slightly eroded the sense of urgency. However, one must not forget the severity of the situation by relying on such feelings. Professor Glast is a very meticulous person. If he's been kidnapped by such a person, Ed would not be in a good state. He must be trapped somewhere, in distress. Panic, distress, difficulty, crisis. Words that seem to have nothing to do with him, but at this point, it's highly likely that he is in desperate need of help. Putting aside any debts owed to Ed, if you truly care about him, you must reach out and help. Because of living life as a merchant, always converting human relationships into debts, he had forgotten that obvious truth. Suddenly, Lortel realized that he truly wanted to help someone out of pure goodwill. Living a life on the merchant's path, judging people's value solely by money, he now feels a new light in his winter life. It seemed he saw the beginning of a new relationship, one that money couldn't buy, filling his heart with elation. That's right. Lortel made up his mind. Ed is definitely in a crisis needing help. Now is the time to help Ed. Bang! At that moment, the wall about 5 steps behind him exploded. Though the security was tight like a fortress, with intermediate-level concealment and sealing magic, it was like a candle in the wind before high-level explosive magic. Boom! Bang! Kaboom! The solid steel plate, glowing red-hot, was slammed into the sewer and sent up smoke. High-level magic that even the faculty had to concentrate to chant properly. The magic, casually triggered with a wave of one hand while carrying Ed on his back, unforgivingly tore open the entrance to the secret lab. Ed Rothtailor emerged from the smoke. Startled, Lortel momentarily forgot to breathe. Ed, Sr. Oh, Lortel, you were here. There are a few scratches on his face, but otherwise, he looks fine. The first emotion that rises is relief. The fact that the kidnapped Ed is alive and well is a great comfort. And following is perplexity, or rather, disbelief. Ed, Sr. What? I was kidnapped. That. I know, but. Ed, readjusting Lucy on his back, shook his arms. He was filled with all sorts of parchment rolls in his arms and the pockets of his robes. It's good timing, Lortel. Take some of this. It's too much for me to carry alone. Ah yes. As Ed strode towards him and dumped a pile of parchments in front of Lortel, he reflexively caught them and was astounded by the contents. What is this? They're all high-quality crafting formulas. Lortel has the skill to convert anything into monetary value. The formulas that Ed nonchalantly flung out were all very rare finds. Some were even legendary-grade magic engineering formulas. It's bewildering where Ed could have gotten them. Before that, the question is how come he's so unscathed? Senior, that weren't you in a dire crisis? Yeah, I was. But I resolved it somehow. Only then did Lortel's gaze shift to Lucy, carried on Ed's back. Lucy Mayrill, the ridiculously strong first-year top student who made the first move. Numerous magicians may boast of their prowess, but they are all but children before Lucy, making it a competition they were bound never to win from the start. In that moment, Lortel's intuition sounded an alarm. The heart that would always turn cold in a crisis now reminded him of a newly arrived rival's presence. Lucy, sound asleep on Ed's back, breathing softly as if uninterested in anything else. No matter how one looked at it, Lucy did not harbor any romantic feelings for Ed Rothtaylor. Indeed, the thought of seeing any potential rival was utterly out of the question. Yet it wasn't as if they were simply strangers. Rather oddly, Lucy seemed to constantly wander the area around Ed. Even more, she had quickly come to Ed's rescue when he was cornered, startling given Lucy's usual avoidance of others' touch. Yet while carried on Ed's back, she slept soundly, drooling in a blissfully comfortable slumber. The exact nature of the distance Lucy kept from Ed was baffling. At present, they might simply share a comfortable camaraderie, but should their relationship begin to develop in any other direction, this distance could rapidly accelerate and become uncontrollable. This was dangerous, truly dangerous. Like a ticking time bomb, one must snip the bud of trouble early to prevent inevitable regrets. And yet it's infuriating. The inherently shy and gentle-hearted Yenneker, Feylover, could not express her feelings properly, being a coward when it came to making advances. On the other hand, how about Lortel himself? Despite what anyone might say, he was the one most actively advancing their relationship. He had stolen a kiss first, blatantly confessing his feelings, and generously took care of things without any intention of hiding his darker desires. Who doesn't feel a little shame? The day he first stole a kiss in the camp, he was so breathless on his way home that he nearly caused a forest fire by dropping his torch. On days when he was to meet Ed, he would wake up early, throw a fit, and obsessively dress himself. He might bait with a fox-like face, play push and pull, lightly ruffling the heart of the other, but more than anything, it was his own heart that was truly being scratched red with embarrassment. Isn't it about time to be affected even a little by this? Shouldn't they at least be aware? At least around oneself, shouldn't they avoid displaying affection or closeness with another woman? Lortel bolstered his resolve. By now, it was time to take bolder steps. At this rate, one could truly become a fool in an instant. As it looked, there seemed to be no significant harm to Ed's body, and the major issues appeared to have settled. No serious crisis seemed imminent. Lortel was a merchant. The essence of commerce is give and take. If he can't push back strongly now, if he can't seize control from Ed at once, he'll truly have grave regrets. Then, Senior Ed, please take care of that parchment scroll. If there are materials available in the guild inventory, please prepare them accordingly. I'll come to collect it at Elk Guild later. And if there's anything you'd want to purchase, let me know. Aside from the legendary scrolls, everything else is up for sale. You've helped me with various things, so I won't mind selling at a slight discount. Really? But this is, I'm asking you, who else can I trust besides you, really? Lortel lifted his head sharply. Really? As for my relationship, well, you know it's pretty straightforward. Most aren't reliable. You're the only one I consider a solid guy, so this request is only natural from my side. You're the only one I can trust, only you, only you. Though the line carried great significance, it echoed within Lortel's heart. Is that really the case? Why would I lie? Lortel scoffed. Even so, this was crossing a line. After all that was done out of unrequited affection, now to demand this was absurd. There's a limit to treating someone like a fool. Even if one has grown insensitive to the thrills of affection in the cutthroat world of commerce, there's a limit. That's professionalism, that's the merchant way. Lortel swallowed hard, tensed his throat, and looked straight at Ed. Speaking with the coldest tone he could muster, it was time to make a stand. Senior Ed, this seems to be going too far now. Would you require a receipt as well? I am such a fool. As Lortel let out a vacuous sigh, as if unloading heavy burdens. While Ed and Lortel were discussing various matters concerning the parchment scroll, a man burst in from the waterway on the other side. An ordinary man without significant combat abilities had penetrated the dangerous underground water channels. Seeing him chop through the water and run towards them appeared quite urgent. It was bright. There should have been no sources of light in these underground water channels. If one sought the origin of the light, it would lead to various forms of elemental spirits. Fire, water, wind, earth, grass, ice. Eagles, rabbits, lions, wolves, sparrows, lizards. Among those spirits, a girl was standing adjusting her skirt, holding an oak staff diagonally. She was simply standing there, an innocent picture amidst the multitude of protective spirits. In the current situation, Tylee stood no chance against such a force. Tylee had realized this fact several times over and couldn't help but concede defeat. Yet there was a reason to fight. They had to rescue Aila. For his life's companion Aila, he would stake his very life countless times over. What's going on? Why is the mood like this? Zix looked back and forth, confused by the standoff between Yenica and Taylee's group. The fear ingrained in Tylee towards Yenica, and Elvira recognizing that fighting image, immediately assumed a battle stance. Collapsing Dorothy, destroyed magical golems, the unconscious Professor Claire. All signs pointed to Yenica engaging in some destructive activities. To act with hostility in a closed environment, without witnesses, was reasonable, but Zix and Adele were puzzled. Yenica held a stronger image as a lovable and innocent young scholarship student. It's okay, Tylee. Calm down. It was unlikely they stood a chance. One can't easily oppose such a sweetheart. Having experienced battle alongside Yenica during the Ophelius Hall incident, Zix knew better. Having her on their side was a relief. There was no guarantee that the first-year group could overcome Yenica, considering all they had been through. It's unwise to waste one's strength unnecessarily. It would be best to settle matters with words if possible. Considering Yenica's personality, there was a greater chance she had no intent to fight. Zix thought it best to mediate as he raised his voice. That will do. From the west corridor of the waterway, a familiar voice sounded. The gaze of Taylee's group and Yenica shifted in that direction. Emerging from the darkness of the passageway, a blonde boy appeared, carrying a petite magician girl on his back. His clothes were slightly torn, and his body bore quite a few cuts and scrapes. Ed Rothtaylor. The boy's name was called twice. Yenica's expression blossomed like a blooming flower as she called out the name. Chapter 59. Glassed Subjugation Mission 8. The issue reported by the Commercial Guild's staff was something that was bound to happen sooner or later. The news is that the mercenaries hired by the Golden King Elt have entered Akan Island. They're taking advantage of the chaos near the faculty building to seize control of the Sylvania branch of Eltie's Commercial Guild and plan to capture the highest representative, Lortel. The Elt Guild's forces are significantly depleted, leaving them completely defenseless. It's a well-known fact that time waits for no one. The reason time seems to fly by for me is probably because of how hectically I've lived my life. Running around day in and day out just to make ends meet, and suddenly, it's the final chapter of Act 2. It feels like just yesterday when Yenica took over the student council and caused mayhem, juggling exam scores, the storyline, and camp duties. What seemed like a major incident half a year ago is now just a distant memory. No matter how diligently and thoroughly one lives, things that couldn't be addressed in the rush of life tend to resurface at the most hectic, sensitive times. Act 2 went mostly without a hitch. Even the slight deviations, such as the Ophelius Hall occupation, and the Sage's Seal scramble, were neatly resolved. However, one glaring issue, left dangling and unresolved from those events, clearly remains. The Golden King Elt, who was thoroughly defeated in the original story without a chance for recovery, got a bit of a reprieve due to his earlier than expected downfall, providing him a last-ditch effort to struggle. This is more a deferred issue than a resolved one. Yes, that's right. It seems the Elk Guild has completed the dethroning process, but the way they've accepted their downfall so calmly suggests they have something up their sleeve. I'm worried that Senior Ed might get hurt because of whatever Elt is planning. That's why I called, to make sure there were no issues with him. I see. Given Eltie's desperate situation, we can't predict what he might do, so we must always stay alert. Lortel mentioned this when visiting the Elk Guild. She surely had some countermeasures in mind. Act 2 is the last chance to regroup before the latter half of the storyline begins, where trials become increasingly absurd. It's the period when Tylee gains enough strength to stand against the main characters of the storyline. We're almost through the major trials of Act 2. With Glast's defeat, Act 2 should come to a clean and definitive end. We can't let remnants of the past create new variables unchecked. I've mentioned time and again, my informational advantage, knowing the predetermined flow of the future, is my greatest weapon, an absolute edge that must not be squandered if I am to survive in this world. Those who should exit in Act 2 must do so within it. Elt, a merchant who has navigated the commercial world's challenges, poses a significant variable if he manages to maintain his power. There's no need for detailed explanation, I've experienced enough. Even the butterfly effect caused by a third-rate villain who should have fallen at the story's beginning can significantly shake the world. That's inevitable since that third-rate villain is me. I'm prepared to deal with and rectify such anomalies. After all, I need to survive. It's not about others, it's my story. However, if it's not me but others involved, the story changes. Carrying Lucy, I walked towards Taylee's group, followed by Lortel and Yenneker catching up in bewilderment. Stay back, or, Tylee, holding a sword, shouted with Elvira sweating and glaring at me. Just as Tylee was about to push the sword forward, Zix grabbed the hilt, lowering it, and stood between Tylee and me. Senior Ed, we don't want to fight you. We just want to save Aila. Go ahead. I'm not in the mood to fight anyway. It seems there was a misunderstanding about my intent to fight Tylee. The path from here should be mostly clear. I can't be bothered to explain the details, but after saving Aila, ask her. She was kidnapped with me, so she can fill you in on the situation. Senior Ed, then you, I have urgent matters to attend to. I need to go. So, make way. After a moment of silence, an exchange of looks occurred between my followers and Taylee's group. Zix looked at Tylee, nodded, and stepped aside with him, making way. As the two main leaders stepped aside, the rest of the group hesitantly moved aside too. I glanced at Lortel and Yenneker and walked down the cleared path. Passing by, the intense gazes on me were unmistakable. Accompanied by Yenneker, who had unsummoned all her spirits, and Lortel in her robe, with Lucy sound asleep, I headed towards the exit. Turning back, Taylee's group was reorganizing and watching us. Tylee. She looked as if she had seen a ghost. Understandable. Yet, there's still much to do deep within the underground waterway. Small named bosses and various monsters along the path have been dealt with, but the sage researcher Cum, the revived demon of the waterway, the Cyclops, and the Inquirer Glast remain. Lortel, one of those bosses, will have to wait. The Elt matter is more pressing. Lortel, being a conditionally hostile boss, can be skipped without much issue. There will be many more challenging and rewarding trials ahead, especially enduring Glast's holy magic, which will test the limits of human endurance. Work hard. There was no need for lengthy explanations or extensive encouragement. With just that brief remark, my companions and I vanished into the darkness of the underground waterway. Taylee's group watched my receding figure in silence, but ultimately, no one said anything further. Our pace quickened. Splashing through the water, Yenneker, Lortel, and I advanced toward the exit direction. My father's downfall within the guild is a certainty now, but that doesn't mean there are no ways to turn the situation around. Lortel summarized the situation with her calm tone. The downfall of Eltie's guild is based on accountability. The decisive factor for this downfall was the loss in the drum trade. If we can dissociate from this responsibility, there might be a chance to survive. Then, yes, the goal is to find evidence that this business loss was manipulated. Originally, Elt should have been backstabbed by Lortel in the Sage's Seal Scramble and fallen into ruin, without any chance for a comeback. The responsibility for the drum trade loss should have immediately led to his downfall. However, the fact that news of the downfall's certainty is heard, but not of its completion, suggests. Are they using the guild's internal forces for a power struggle? According to the original plan, the downfall should have been expedited without any chance for resistance, but it seems things haven't gone smoothly due to the acceleration of the plan. This allowed Elt to gain just enough time to return to Sylvania. We'll overturn all the documents in the guild's branch, but I doubt we'll find any evidence that could change the situation. I'm not foolish enough to leave such evidence behind. So, the conclusion remains the same as before. Yes. The most certain method is to capture me directly, whether through torture or whatever means, to spill all truths. Whatever the case, capturing Lortel, the pivot of Eltie's downfall plan, was the most definitive approach. No, Ed. Yenneker abruptly grabbed my sleeve, almost causing me to drop Lucy in surprise. She then wobbled to the front, arms raised to block the path, trembling. We can't follow Lortel, Ed. Yenneker, you'll get hurt again. Yenneker seemed surprised by her own loud voice, quickly softening her tone, hiccuping as she regained composure. Ed, you've just escaped captivity. Don't forget that. With your current condition, trying to deal with Golden King Elt is too reckless. Then, Yenneker turned her gaze towards Lortel. Did you forget you collapsed from overwork just the other day? Yenneker wasn't used to expressing anger. Raising her voice or pressing someone felt unnatural, her voice faltering. Yet, she stared sternly at Lortel, unaccustomed to such confrontation. This is about Eltie's guild. Strictly speaking, it has nothing to do with Ed. I just wish Ed wouldn't get hurt any further. Her voice dwindled, even as she expressed anger, a very Yenneker-like reaction. And her argument wasn't wrong. After all, Eltie's downfall and everything else was strictly Lortel's concern. From an outsider's perspective, as long as I kept myself safe, the power dynamics of Eltie's guild didn't matter much to me. However, Lortel was unlikely to be swayed by this rationale. What are you talking about, Ed? No, it was Yenneker who spoke first. Lortel opened her mouth to speak but then dashed back a few steps as if struck by lightning, her cheeks flushed, as if ambushed unexpectedly. Move. We don't have time. If Elt had truly invaded the Sylvania dormitory, it wouldn't take long for him to trace Lortel's location to this underground waterway. Everything Elt desires is here. Lortel Cahelm, who can prove the drum trade loss was a setup for his downfall, myself for the credibility of her testimony, and even the physical Sage's seal he desperately sought. While the third-party intervention and the Academy forces led by Headmaster Obel won't sit idle, they won't have the capacity to deal with Elt amidst this chaos. Elt might exploit this opportunity. What do you mean it's not someone else's problem? Have you and Lortel become more than acquaintances? Because of the contract. Right, if Lortel loses control of the guild, it'll affect the distribution of magic engineering supplies to you, right? Yes, that must be it. Suddenly, Yenneker's brain seemed to spin faster than usual, her ability to assess the situation seemingly doubled. As I hurriedly moved forward, Yenneker spontaneously crafted an excuse I hadn't even considered. Yenneker, smarter than I thought. Yes, exactly. Right. Aha. In the sudden turn of events, without having fully explained everything to Yenneker, her ability to infer and adapt on the fly was evident. Certainly befitting of a top student in the grade. Even with the situation of carrying Lucy on my back, Yenneker just hurried along with her oak wand clutched tight, instead of asking how it all came to be. First things first, we had to return to the Elt Exchange's Sylvania branch to assess the situation. It would be wise to prevent Elt from pulling any tricks, at least until Tylee wraps up the final chapter. So we raced toward the exit at full speed. I was already tired, and carrying Lucy made my breath come short. Moving through the endless-seeming subterranean waterways, battle traces occasionally came into view. Presumably, these were signs that Tylee had passed by. Considering the many demonic golems and mid-bosses from the entrance of the sewer, it was plausible. Approaching the exit, we came upon the aftermath of a tremendous battle. The mid-boss of Act 2, Scene 2. The superior demonic golem Hayden and Dorothy, the third-year top student from the alchemy department. Hayden was demolished into fragments scattered all around the entrance of the sewer, and amidst the wreckage. Dorothy lay unconscious. What a disaster. The initial phase of Act 2 isn't particularly difficult. Given Taylor's current specs, he could have blitzed through in a straight line without much resistance. It's my first time running through the secret lab and the waterways in reverse, so observing these aftermaths felt quite novel. I quickly scanned the entrance area to assess the situation. The demonic golem Hayden was truly finished. Dorothy, collapsed on the ground, bore a face streaked with saliva and tears, as if frozen mid-scream from sheer terror. One might think she was tormented, but Tylee doesn't have that sort of disposition. Tylee, you really went to town on your seniors, wait, till I see it, without a drop of pity. As I sighed upon seeing Dorothy's state, Yenica oddly echoed my remark with an airy tone. It wasn't really a question that needed an answer, right? It's a bit violent. Senior Yenica. Lortel looked pitifully at Yenica, who fidgeted with her fingers, as if to say, why lie when you're going to be found out anyway? Suspicion struck me again, and looking down at Dorothy, the shawl covering her body looked familiar. Embroidered with delicate cosmos patterns, it was unmistakably Yenica's, worn over her uniform. On second look, Yenica stood there, hiccuping and cloaked only in her uniform. Sorry, I lied. You did it, Yenica. I didn't mean to do this. It happened while trying to do this and that, but I'm not heartless or tearless. Don't misunderstand. It's true, absolutely true. No, I'm sorry for assuming it was you without knowing. My apology came out reflexively, seeing her desperation to defend herself. I didn't have time to explain myself, Ed. Don't get the wrong idea. I need to start with muck flying toward me. Oh, don't look at me like I'm a violent person. Don't look at me that way. While I had no view of Lortel's expression, listening to Yenica's story was necessary to understand what had been happening outside while I was trapped. Let's hear the rest as we head toward the exit. We were already close, just one long staircase, and we'd be outside. The damp depths of the underground waterway made me feel cut off from the outside world. Once outside, breathing fresh air, I'd contemplate our immediate course of action. So, we sprinted up the stairs, with Lortel and Yenica quickly following. Once across the long stairway and outside the waterway, the crisp night air filled my lungs, and a clear night sky came into view. Before that feeling of liberation could settle, the sight before us was unexpected. A spacious marble-paved entrance to the waterway. Among the chaos, one carriage stood out, Lortel Cahelm's. Had the employees been instructed to wait outside before entering the waterway? However, most of the employees had been subdued. 1, 2, 3, there were too many mercenaries surrounding the waterway entrance to count. You're earlier than expected, Father. Threatening the association's employees revealed that you'd headed for this sewer. You still have much to learn about personnel management, Lortel. Despite the stars in the night sky, the darkness around the waterway entrance lingered. Ordinarily, the Academy could never allow such a large number of mercenaries to enter. However, most employees were either dealing with the aftermath at Triss Hall or dispatched to locate Professor Glast. Tylee, who had first discovered and followed Glast, quickly gathered comrades to continue the pursuit, while the staff, receiving only paper reports, lagged behind. Had we waited for staff processes to apprehend Glast together, we couldn't predict what might have happened to AILA. That's why Taylor's unilateralism wasn't entirely unjustified. Still, I wished the Academy staff had managed to stop Eltie's intrusion. This mistake, Eltie's meticulous nature must have played a part. How did you cross the bridge to Aken? There's only one entryway. If you can cross the waters, you need not bother with a bridge. Using the cover of darkness, Elt had ferried the mercenaries into the Academy in small boats, cunning as a viper. The Academy will surely make this a major issue. Better than losing my life, isn't it? Besides, if I can tie up all my business here now, I'll gladly face any subsequent condemnations or responsibility inquiries. Eltie's formerly dazzling image had dimmed. Once a flamboyant figure exuding wealth, Elt now dressed in a modest and unremarkable way, albeit a few remains of valuable ornaments showed past glory had faded. He looked like a man clinging to a ledge before descent, desperation clear in his unwary gaze. The size of the mercenary force brought to face just a few students meant to some, an excessive precaution. If Headmaster Obel acts in person, a mere traitor like me would be subdued in an instant. But I must settle things before that. And if you can nab the seal amidst the chaos, all the better, right? Lortel's question was met with Eltie's laughter. A moment like this was a rare opportunity for Elt. Fail to seize it, and he may never get another chance. I'm not ready to step off this stage yet, Lortel. I quietly gazed at Elt. The fake boss of Act 2, doomed to a tragic end by Lortel's betrayal. Despite his sturdy appearance, I felt no animosity bubbling up. Selfish, inherently vile, willing to murder for glory and fortune, and to manipulate others without hesitation. I knew well, in any story, a villain as vivid as one from a painting is indispensable. For each protagonist who moves and inspires all with virtue, there must exist a villain, evil by birth, destined for a miserable end. It's ironic that it's easier to become a villain than a hero living in this world. Struggling for one's share in life, one could routinely appear heartless and cruel to others. Certainly, Elt had gone too far, crossing moral lines repeatedly. Nevertheless, I bore him no ill will. Elt obstructed our path so doggedly because he, too, sought survival. No villain desires merely to remain a defeated outcast after falling from the grand stage. To survive, this is every living being's yearning, irrelevant to purity of character. My situation was the same, which is why I refrained from moral judgment of Elt. Yet, I had no intention of yielding. The ground shook without warning. Everyone, Elt, his mercenaries, the subdued association employees, Yenica, and Lortel, appeared stunned by the sudden tremor. The shock was different from when Lucy broke through the earth. As the world seemed to turn over, I steadied myself. Then, Susan's estate was struck by lightning from a clear sky. Only when the night sky's 7 great stars align can the high celestial magic, descent of the demon realm, be used. Among Professor Glast's celestial magics, it commanded the grandest scale. Massive amounts of mana circulating in the atmosphere met Glast's celestial magic, resonating with celestial magic circles etched across the academy grounds. Explosions echoed, and giant towers of mana erupted from various points, their scale belying the imagination. Each mana tower seemed to pierce the clouds, as high as a half-day's climb. This was the construction event of Glast's mana tower, unfolding the moment Taylor's group entered the secret research lab. To chase Glast, who had fled to the top of a mana tower, they had to aim for the deepest entrance within the secret research laboratory. The towers absorbed celestial magic like antennas, not 1 or 2 but 10 in total. To twist the very laws of nature, such was the necessity. The story's final stage was ascending above us. Reacting to the overwhelming mana, Lucy, who had been carried on my back, opened her eyes wide. The resurrection of the lion, she murmured to herself as she lifted her head to view the sky. Beneath the night sky embroidered with crimson mana, I stood erect. Even with the world in upheaval, Elt glared steadily at us. The stage of our story lay beyond. I understood his grit, to survive and ascend above the stage by any means. Alas, this is where Eltie's journey ends. This is not a neatly packaged tale of the triumph of good over evil unfolding on a grand stage. Mired in the mud are the villains, bitter struggles for existence, where elaborating on good and evil seems laughable. No more roles await Elt. If a person isn't benevolent, doesn't positively influence, or can't lend strength in dire times, regretfully, it's time for him to exit the stage. My resolve to survive remains unchanged. For I, too, must live on. Taylor's group effortlessly bulldozed a near-straight path from the underground waterway to the monster research laboratory. Besides the weakness of the monsters, the major passages had already been cleared, likely by Ed Rothtaylor during his escape. No trace of battle remained, and the route showed no sign of wastage. No signs of traps to ensnare Taylor's group were found. Reaching the Soul Library, Ed appeared to have completed the task, no enemies were left. Was it truly only support for Taylor's group that motivated Ed Rothtaylor? What then could that urgent matter be that caused him to rush away from the waterway? In this crisis, with a teacher causing trouble, a student kidnapped, and a seal stolen, what could be more urgent? With these questions, Taylor's group continued deeper into the secret research facility. At this moment, their priority was saving AILA. That was all that mattered. Chapter 60. Glassed Subjugation War 9. So, become strong. To you, who became the final period of my life, I dedicate the last sentence of this book. Lucy. The last page of the Grand Mage Glast's compendium. Though now a memory faded by time, it was an unforgettable one. The girl had no choice but to accept it as she closed that last page next to Glast's remains. The Grand Mage, who had achieved such a monumental legacy, had anticipated how his sole family and disciple would face his death. More than anyone, Glast himself had accepted death, embraced it, and calmly awaited it as evidence. Thus, the girl too had no choice but to let him go. A day when the pain of loss heals completely, leaving not even a scar, will it come? A day when I can sprawl out carefree, laughing about things lost as merely past pains, will it come? The girl with her brittle white hair streaming down left Glast's cabin, and that's where her memory ends. On the day she started her journey, she couldn't quite remember the weather. The powerful magic tower stretches straight up into the sky as if to pierce it. From the subterranean channel leading inside, scarlet magic surges up like spring water, ready to consume all who approach. Considering the amount and origin of the magic flowing within, it seems that Taylor's party has entered the Saintly Studies research raid on Cum. I hope they break through quickly. But Cum is a time-consuming boss. There's no straightforward way to counter it, and one must endure its attacks until being consumed by its saintly magic. As I say this, I realize my situation is quite similar. I have no intention of stepping aside from this subterranean channel entrance before Tylee concludes the final battle. None shall ascend to the stage on my watch. I stand firm, repelling all comers. SSHRRK. Whoosh. Mercenaries all draw their weapons in unison. I quickly take in the situation. This mercenary band is of a different caliber from the one that appeared during the Ophelius incident. At that time, they quickly gathered whoever was available for just one night. But now, this is LT's final strategy, fully prepared with ample time. Each mercenary's bearing is extraordinary in comparison. Unlike the previous mercenaries lacking in discipline and uniformity, their movements are systematic, their weapons meticulously kept, and their shiny armors rival the royal guards. Moreover, each one is a seasoned veteran around middle-aged. Most are retired soldiers or experts whose experience easily spans more than a decade. Scars on their forearms and along their faces attest to their seasoned expertise. Their number seems to just exceed 50. All skilled veterans. Such forces are arrayed against just 4 students, but not once do they grow complacent or lose formation. For convenience's sake, they might be divided into infantry, magic soldiers, and archers, but that's just a simplification. These veterans are adept with various weapons. Other than Lortel, life or death is inconsequential. Finish swiftly and quietly. Before the words are fully out, an old swordsman at the front of the infantry lunges off the ground. With swift and precise judgment, he must be the leader of the infantry. He completes his assessment of the enemy's strength in an instant, his sword aimed straight at my neck. He clearly identifies me as the most crucial member of the opposing party, likely due to me leading the conversation and position. And yet, my defenses are far from impenetrable. I'm the perfect target. LT's words had distracted everyone, and he planned to seize his opponent from the top ranks. It reflected the reflexes earned from a long career. Clang. But the sword does not reach me. Blocking it is Yenika's staff, swathed in her characteristic sturdy earth elemental defense magic. Having already perceived Yenika's defense spell, I hadn't budged. The mercenary leader, realizing his strike was in vain, quickly kicked off the ground to gain distance again. Yenika stretched out her hand to summon a fire elemental to stop him, but arrows enchanted with magic struck Yenika's shields instead. Support arrows from the archer group helped their allies penetrate the line. While Yenika was momentarily stiffened by the hit, the infantry leader managed to increase the distance and slip back into formation. Yenika flicked her hand, casting off the arrows before quickly checking if I was unharmed. Thanks, Yenika. Be careful, Ed. Their movements are definitely coordinated. The archers disappear one by one into the shadows of the forest, their unpredictable arrows pressing us to keep up our defenses. To fight with defense magic up feels like battling while carrying a heavy stone. Defense magic should be conjured at the right moment when needed, not worn constantly like a shield. Such spells typically lack mana efficiency. We must be vigilant, an arrow could strike the back of our heads at any moment. The pressure is substantial. Indeed, elementalists can be quite troublesome. Elt has already witnessed Yenika's abilities. Naturally, having known the enemy's capabilities, she wouldn't come unprepared. Elt pulls out a scroll and reveals it. A complex magic circle is drawn on it, as large as a gate. A legendary-grade magical engineering artifact, Belarus's Prejudice. A high-end magical engineering item worth dozens of gold coins per use. Taking its consumable nature into account, it's quite expensive even among legendary-grade items. Its function is magic suppression. An improved version of the night butterfly flower concoction Elvira used. The night butterfly flower concoction was relatively easy to produce but had a short duration and negligible effects against those with high magic sensitivity. Elt's magical engineering artifact is more effective. Its price reflects its ability to suppress magic against even moderately sensitive magic users. Its effective range is quite limited, and it takes time to activate, with rather obvious preparation, critical flaws, but in the current numerical disadvantage, they're not significant. If that's activated, it's over for us. Lortel asserts while reinforcing the magic circle to activate it. Most of our power is magical, and if we're suppressed even for just 10 minutes, we'll be quickly overpowered. What are the chances of overcoming the mercenary forces before the magical engineering artifact activates? With a well-trained and experienced mercenary band like that, expect a long battle. From the start, my goal was to hold out until Taylor's final battle concludes, so time is on our side. I brushed my hair back and gulped down a breath. Somehow, we have to deal with that magical engineering artifact. Fortunately, a few ideas came to mind. After all, Elt herself lacks combat skills, so if we can get close, we can subdue her. As I ponder my approach. Whoosh. Suddenly, I feel a tremor, an alert from Lucy on my back. Lucy places a hand on my shoulder and stretches upright, half rising. She then looks silently up at the magic tower. Quote. Even a desperate battle situation felt like mere mosquito buzzing to this girl. Lucy dusts off her clothes, looking unconcerned as if it was nothing. With the battle still hanging in the balance, all eyes on us, the girl named Lucy kept her gaze lifted toward the magic tower, embodying the calm before the storm. Her eyes, usually sleepy and dull, were now wide open. With one hand securing her witch's hat against falling off, Lucy remained focused on the sky, her attention never diverting to the surrounding mercenaries. Lucy. I have a suspicion. Lucy probably instinctively realized what the magic tower teeming with energy was built for. It would be a mistake to take her vacant and naive appearance as a sign of emptiness within. Lucy's knowledge of magic far exceeds that of ordinary people. Although she doesn't need to study regularly due to her photographic memory, her knowledge is so vast that it warrants the title of a prodigy. Considering the magical reaction, the unfathomable scope of saintly magic, and Professor Glast's actions, it's clear she has the ability to deduce his intentions. With a deft motion, Lucy slips off my back and begins looking around. Slowly, magic starts to swirl within her. The overwhelming presence of magical energy beyond limits is like standing at the foot of a towering mountain. From this proximity, it's impossible to discern its full scale, which instills even greater fear. Consequently, an eerie silence lingers in the air. The mercenaries hesitate to carelessly enter our striking distance. If we discard our defensive magic to attack, we risk our own casualties, but the mercenary band would also suffer significant damage. Lortel wields middle-tier magic with ease, and Yenika can summon high-level elementals. Rather than rushing into an all-out conflict, it's better to maintain this stalemate while waiting for Elt's magical engineering artifact to activate. After all, we are the ones who need to make the first move. It's a cunning and appropriate response. If only the power of Eltie's party were exactly as they had surmised. I've just thought of a place I want to go. Lucy dusts off her clothes nonchalantly as if it's all an afterthought. He said, I need to clear a path. Quote. According to the original script, Lucy should have been napping on the roof of the Triciana building. It wasn't until after the incident was over that she would wake up from her sleepy stupor, realizing what had happened, and then reflect upon the episode in the second act's epilogue, thus bringing her role to an end. However, if Lucy is awakened in Phase 1, she confronts Professor Glast, who is trying to escape. The situation turns into a bad ending when the now fully aware Lucy gets persuaded by Professor Glast's eloquence to join him. Lucy alone subdues Tylee and her party, and the curtain falls as she quietly enters the underground waterway. What's happening? Is that a student? The magic power circling Lucy skyrockets, overwhelming everyone present. Even those who have lived long lives have never witnessed such a display of magic power without any preparation or incantation. The swirling wind is not a natural occurrence. It's merely a physical byproduct of the unleashed magical power. But even this storm is hard to withstand, forcing everyone to brace themselves. The mercenaries swallow their saliva unanimously. She's still a student. They won't be careless, but they believe they have the advantage in strength. Among the opposing forces, the most dangerous one would undoubtedly be second-year valedictorian Yenneca Failover. If they handle Yenneca's spirit magic well, they believe they could certainly win. However, regrettably, the strong adversary isn't Yenneca. No amount of protesting can change that bitter fact. The wind's intensity increases. At the center of the storm is a petite girl. Clad in a school uniform that doesn't quite fit, she stands with her collar flapping, a languid sorceress. Finally, when the girl's power could no longer spread, it felt almost as though it could swallow the world whole. Whistle. Boom. Silence returns. Like the beginning, there's no wind. Just the tranquil setting of a forest. The turbulent callers settle down, and only the occasional noise of grasshoppers circles among the guests. From a storm-whipped sea to the tranquility atop calm, reflective waters, this disparity immobilizes allies and enemies alike, including Yenneca and Lortel. However, any experienced mercenary knows the truth. The magical power hasn't disappeared. It's compressed within the small body to its limits. It's about time they realize what kind of magic Lucy is using. Or rather, it's not magic at all. Lucy walks. Her bouncy stride flutters her sleeves as she heads towards Elt, who is holding an artifact of magical engineering, hopping like a rabbit. Her cheerful walk could be mistaken for a pleasant outing. But the mercenaries who have caught on to Lucy's condition cannot block her path. Instead, the crowd parts along the path she walks. What are you all doing? Stop that student. Block her way. A startled Elt cries out in urgency. Despite the tremendous aftershocks of magic, there seems to be no immediate danger. A small girl with a blank stare is all there is, walking forward. It's incomprehensible that dozens of big, burly mercenaries can't bring themselves to block her path. At this point, Elt realizes there aren't many girls who can handle such a vast amount of mana so freely. She may not know the face, but she's familiar with the whispers about the girl, the unidentified monster living in Sylvania. The valedictorian of freshman year, Lucy Mayrill, is indeed this girl. Have you all gone mad? Move it. In the midst of all this, a young-looking mercenary leaps out from the crowd. His vitality appears robust, which likely means he has less experience than the others. There's a fine line between courage and recklessness. Clang. The blade flies but can't advance any further upon touching Lucy's pale skin. It's like hitting a rock. The mercenary who swung the sword feels a chill surge through his body. Lucy, without sparing him a glance, plop, touches the man's armor as casually as knocking on a door. That light touch shatters the armor. Of course, it doesn't end there. Boom. With a noise like an explosion, the robust mercenary is blown away. He floats through the air, snagging on a Zelkova tree far away. The impact is enough to break several bones. As it has always been, Lucy, a sorceress, rarely uses combat magic. It's hard to call what she does magic. It is mere overwhelming physical force, simple violence. When that vast magic power is maximized and compressed within her body, it creates a physical force that makes any interference with her body impossible. There are no countermeasures. They do exist, but essentially, they don't. That would require infusing an even more overwhelming amount of magic than Lucis magic power, clearly an impossibility. The cruder the method, the cruder the means to deal with it must be. However, any crude method of handling it would depend on the amount of magic power, meaning Lucis mana compression is irrefutably unbreakable. None of the mercenaries move. They possess a unique pride, born of years surviving dangerous frontiers. They never abandon a comrade or flee from a fearsome enemy. But that doesn't mean they can fight. Therefore, they can only stand helplessly. You must be the leader. If I get you, it's all over. Approaching Elt, Lucy speaks with a clear voice, lifting her head. Elt clenches his teeth and activates the magical engineering device with trembling hands. A power that suppresses mana emanates from Eltie's hands, but Lucy remains unfazed. You can scoop out seawater, but you can't scoop it all. Such a fact is too evident, both Lucy and Elt are resigned to it. As Lucy reaches out to Elt, hey, a blonde boy stands between Elt and Lucy. He doesn't look great, battered from running and tumbling. You know, right? You could die. Every move Lucy makes while her mana is compressed to the limit is akin to being hit by a truck. A direct hit to a vital spot or a bad fall could kill instantly. A mercenary wrapped in layers of armor and safety gear might survive, but Elt, untrained and barely clothed, would die with just one catch from Lucy. It's odd. He's not someone who'd worry over Eltie's life. Even if Elt were to lose his life to Lucy, he's sure he wouldn't intervene. The question reveals his concern isn't for Elt. Can you live with it if you kill? Lucy Mayrill, blessed by the great mage, carries an unavoidable fate. It's a promise made with glassed in life to become a pillar against the calamity that would one day come to Sylvania. Do not murder. Avoid staining those small hands with blood at all costs. Live is a student in Sylvania, at least for a while. Someday she must awaken and confront the world, but for now, she can enjoy a lazy life, napping in a sunny spot. But once she draws blood, that life will end. The day she first spills blood is the day Lucy awakens. Lucy knows this. The blessings of the stars etched into her life are not gifts to be taken lightly. Let it be for now. Lucy gazes at him with a vacant look. The tension persists among the mercenaries. She may look like a small girl, but she's as intimidating as facing a colossal weapon. She has the power to demolish an entire area if she wishes. It's insane to command her with authority in front of such a being, unless one knows who Lucy is. Okay. As the compressed mana releases, another gust of wind sweeps the area. After the storm, Lucy's massive magic power dissipates like smoke. Disbelief spreads among everyone as they witness Lucy obey the single-word command and relinquish all her power. Ed smacks the back of Eltie's head with the handle of his dagger, captures him, and then holds a knife to his throat. With Eltie's head as hostage, the situation is resolved. The mercenaries no longer have the will to fight. It's over now. Lucy whispers softly and turns away. As she looks to the sky, the procession of great magic towers is visible. With the situation here settled, Lucy doesn't need to stick around Ed any longer. Where are you going? But Ed Rothtaylor calls out to Lucy. I have a place to go. Ed Rothtaylor is not one to involve himself deeply in others' affairs. Knowing this, Lucy replies simply and doesn't expect a return question. You're confident you won't regret it if you go. Hesitation. Pierced by his words as if struck at her core, Lucy stands silently, gazing at the sky. And then, lowering her gaze, she murmurs a quiet response before disappearing. It was high-level spatial magic.